Welcome everyone. Welcome to the webinar all about celebrating Public Sector Innovation Month. So we've got people who work in the public sector and people who work with the public sector on this webinar, and from all different levels of government, including local government, and people from 3 different countries, Australia, Namibia and Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, most of you know me. And that would be a familiar face to you. And some of you don't. And for those of you who don't know me, that's me, Irena Yashin-Shaw. I've been doing innovation and creativity for a number of years now, since before they became the new workplace imperatives. And in that role, I've had the enormous privilege of being able to work with lots of really smart and dedicated, forward-thinking, innovative leaders who have literally transformed their workplaces and beyond in lots of different ways. And over the last several years, I've been increasingly working in government. And many of the stories in my recent books have come from that particular context, the context of the public sector. And this is the most recent book that I've written. It's called Intrapreneur, that you can see up on the screen there. Subtitle, How Leaders Ignite Innovation, Break Bureaucracy and Catalyze Change. Now, the term intrapreneur is not mainstream as yet, and a lot of people haven't heard of it. In essence, just so that we're all on the same page, it's someone who thinks and acts like an entrepreneur while working inside a large organisation. So in other words, it's the demonstration and the amalgamation of things like personal leadership and business acumen and creative problem solving that results in innovation. So intrapreneurs are the people who find and solve high value problems that help their organizations to soar. So they are the human face of innovation, if you like. So it's really important for organizations to have a critical mass of these kinds of people if they want to be relevant and future ready and successful into going forward. And that's my other book, my previous book, Leading in the Innovation Age, Unleashing Knowledge, Talent and Experience to Create an Innovative Workplace. And that one's been out for about 1.5 years. But you can see that there's a theme here, and they are both about tapping into the potential that resides within our workforce. And every workplace has amazing, clever people with great ideas that are going to waste. And my mission is to help them, to help those organizations, be they public sector or private sector, to tap into that latent talent and that latent potential. Okay, so celebrating Public Sector Innovation Month. And why is that so important? Well, it's important because it helps us to recognise the great work that is being done inside government. And there are so many government employees that do wonderful work, and it's time to shine a light on that. And it's also part of what this month does is that it also reminds us about the necessity to constantly innovate within our government organisations in order to create a future-ready, relevant public sector. So, celebrating Innovation Month. So I was delighted to read Dr. Martin Parkinson's speech at the beginning of the month, launching public sector innovation for 2018. And he's in Canberra, and you can see an extract of his speech on your screen right now. I've highlighted the final sentence because I just think it's really, really important. So forgive me, I'm just going to read it out. So he said, whether we're seeking out the views of the people we serve or scrutinising huge and complex data sets of numbers to figure out patterns of behaviour, or automating some processes to make life easier and save money, all of this is innovation in one way or another. But, and this is the bit I love, technology alone will not get us there, and data alone will not get us there. And I was delighted to hear him say this, that innovation is about our imaginations, and it's about our attitudes. What's yours? And I think this is really, really important, that last sentence, because it takes us beyond thinking of innovation as the domain of new technology and digitization. And of course, those are innovation, and that's important, but this helps us to prompt our thinking beyond that and to think of innovation as not just something we do, but in fact something we be. And that sentence just absolutely resonated with me so much, because much of my work is around helping people to develop their sense of agency as change makers and develop their confidence in their abilities to shape the future of their organisation and the nature of the work that they deliver. So I said in this webinar that I'd pull back the curtain on how highly successful, innovative public sector leaders are bringing inspirational and embedded transformation and change to their departments. So to that end, I want to share 2 case studies with you about 2 leaders from different agencies, very different levels of performance within the organisation. One's a middle manager and one is a very senior leader, a Deputy Director General. So I wanted to share those case studies, and then after that I'll share the 7 steps for creating a culture of innovation in a government agency. So here we go. So the first story is from a small government agency, and it's of a middle manager, and her name is Kate. Not a real name. I've actually had to just expunge real names and use pseudonyms, simply to keep life simple. Otherwise I would have been mired in all sorts of red tape waiting for permission to share stories, and my book would have never come out. So this is actually the opening story from my book about intrapreneurialism. So Kate had responsibility for capability and planning within her agency, and she was in one of my mentoring programs last year, my intrapreneurialism mentoring program called Human Helium. It's a metaphor that I'm using there to say that it's the intrapreneurs who help organisations to soar like helium balloons. So Kate, as part of her role, wanted to digitise their induction process, because at the time it consisted of a few decks of really long, boring PowerPoint slides, and they were really outdated. And there was no way of knowing when or if people had even completed the procedure. So Kate wanted to create a data portal using software that they already had within their organisation called SharePoint, which many government agencies are currently using. So it was already there, and if by being able to put her content onto the SharePoint, it meant that it could easily be updated. And most of all, she wanted the information to be engaging. So she went along to have a meeting with IT to ask if they could do what she had in mind. And they said, sure, no problem. The only catch was that she needed to provide a really detailed project plan, have a $100,000 budget, and wait 2 years. That's bureaucracy. Well, that didn't go down too well with Kate. She decided to do it herself. So she booked a meeting room. She enlisted the support of one of her tech-savvy team members. She bought a book called Idiot's Guide to SharePoint. She enrolled in an online training program, and she watched some YouTube videos. Now, although she and her team member weren't experts in SharePoint, in less than 2 weeks they had a good working product which could then be refined over time. And they actually did all of that without dropping the ball on all of their other existing responsibilities. And apart from the time, the cost of the solution was $45. So the book was $30 and the online training program was $15. And off they went. Now, I spoke with her some time after her original implementation of that pilot, and since then, since she's introduced it to the organisation over a year ago, that site has now grown to become the primary means of communication within the organisation, saving people time in looking for information and making it easily updatable. So that's a wonderful story of someone who is an innovator and just was determined to pursue what she was passionate about despite the layers of bureaucracy that she came up against. So I love that story because it's just a story about a wonderful sense of agency demonstrated by a public sector innovation catalyst and driver and champion. Now, some people might have just gone away and spent days or weeks putting together the project plan and then spent weeks or months even, possibly years, waiting for budget approval and then just quietly acknowledging, well, that's just what it takes to get things done in a government bureaucracy. But not in this case. So I think it's a wonderful example of that quote that I shared earlier, that innovation is about imagination and attitude. So that's my first story. The second one, it comes from a very senior executive leader within a large government agency in Queensland who is succeeding in building a burgeoning culture of innovation by cascading these kinds of key messages, which I'm going to put up on your screen one at a time. So these are the things that they are saying to their people, and she's driving it from the very top as a Deputy Director General. And she's saying, number one, we recognise that innovation is a professional skill. It's a skill for the 21st century workforce in the same way that customer service and project management are professional skills. So these are core capabilities. And so her message was to her people that we will train you up in this new way of working by giving you the skills and the processes and the permission and the support to take your ideas from inception through to fruition. The second one was that we will work with the willing. So anyone who's interested can put their hand up to be trained and equipped and supported in their efforts, no matter where they are or what their role is in the organisation. She said, we will provide you with the opportunity to have the headspace so that you can think differently and use your creativity to solve the difficult issues that face us in this complex world. So we want you to take ownership of your ideas and empower you to bring them to life. The fourth one was we want to tap into your latent innovation capacity. We have a talented and skilled workforce and you are capable of innovation. So we want to give you a voice, a profile, and the opportunity to amplify and formalise what you have already proven to us that you can do. Innovate in the area that you know best because you're the best person to know how to do it better. And we understand that no one else will be more passionate about your idea than you are. She also said, we will clear a path for you. We will serve as sounding boards and provide oversight and resources where necessary. And then finally, there's no right or wrong way to do innovation. There isn't just one approach. So be prepared to try different ways of doing things. Do differently. If something doesn't work, try something else. We'll support you. And they did. They did all of these things. So I worked with that government department over several months, and we went through a couple of iterations of going through this 7-step process that I would love to share with you now. So this is the 7-step process that we've used. The first one is to identify innovators by calling for expressions of interest and nominations from managers. So find out who are the people who are putting their hands up to drive innovation and ask for volunteers, so work with the willing, as they said. The second thing is that we gave them permission to challenge the status quo. So people were encouraged to question established practices without being shut down or dismissed. And they knew that they were allowed to take calculated risks and that they would be supported without losing face if things didn't deliver the anticipated results. Okay, so then the third step was to teach them to think like empowered change agents. So I worked with their people to scope and design projects where they could build their confidence with small-scale pilots before then scaling them up incrementally. So they learned to start small, to be agile, and to get some quick wins before adapting and scaling up. So the fourth step was to use a process for identifying problems worth solving. So I've got a checklist and a decision matrix that enables people to analyse the worthiness of a problem or a challenge that they're proposing to pursue to ensure that the work does bring value to the organisation. And then number 5 is to systematize innovation. And that simply means to have a process, to have some tools, to have some routines in place to support people in order to drive their innovation projects. The 6th one is to quantify the value of innovation initiatives. So have some kind of a method of calculating return on investment. In other words, do the maths on the actual dollars that innovation initiative brings back to the organisation. And people are always astounded when we do that part of the program because especially in the public sector, people aren't always used to being pushed to quantify the time savings that translate into dollar savings that improvements to processes can bring. And so very often, when we add up the improvements over not just from one person but over a team or over an entire area, over a period of weeks and months and across a year, people are usually astounded when they realise that something that started as a small innovation initiative has actually ended up bringing back hundreds of thousands of dollars of value to the organisation by either reclaiming brown money, which is, all of that lost productivity that resides inside large organisational systems, or, it's helping to build the organisation's reputation, it's connecting with clients so much more effectively. So there's lots of different ways in which innovation initiatives bring enormous value, and whenever possible, we try to actually put the dollars around that because it's a very, very motivating thing to see how beneficial that is. And then the final step is to, in fact, celebrate innovation formally. So there are many ways that can happen. It can be at the ends of projects or during team meetings, annually, quarterly, ideally all of those. So it's important to have some mechanism by which the good work done by the innovators within the organisation is foregrounded, it's presented, it's discussed, whether that's among the whole area or a branch or a team, and that there is some kind of acknowledgement and celebration of the work that they've delivered so that people realise that we're supposed to talk about this. We're supposed to promote it. So whenever I do my programs in-house, I always do an innovation showcase at the end of those mentoring programs so that we can celebrate the outcomes. And indeed, many of the case studies that you will find in both my books, especially this latest one, have come from many of those projects that people have delivered. So if you would like a free copy of my latest book, then let me know. If you just email me at the email that you see on the screen there, Irena at drirenayashinshaw.com, DR, not full name doctor, I will be more than happy to send you a book. And if you can see any way that you might like to work with me and that you'd like to talk further about any of this, then also put into that email, yes please, book a call, and then we can make a time. My EA Tanya will contact you to arrange that, and we can have a more in-depth chat about that. So thank you all very much for being on the webinar today. It's fabulous having you all on board. I'll send everyone the recording of the webinar, including people who weren't able to make it live with us today. But email me if you've got any questions. You can also contact me through my website or my Facebook page. By all means, reach out to me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you over the near future and just sending you a copy of my book if you want it. So thanks now, goodbye, and we'll be in touch.